Alright, so welcome back to another video. So today's video, I'm doing some more suspension upgrades on the Transit. So in a previous video, I installed a set of SuperSprings and the Bilstein shocks. You can kind of see the shocks and the SuperSprings. And they've been working pretty good. Later on, I installed the SuperSprings for the front. Kind of gave a little more ground clearance in the front, but I was just trying to help with how the vehicle drives, you know, like in heavy wind, crosswinds, and it did work. Actually, it's too good now. So what I mean by that is the rear suspension sitting on the SuperSprings all the time, and the Bilstein shocks, it's very stable, but it is also very harsh. So I'm going to be stepping up a little bit to a set of SuperSprings. So SuperSprings go pretty good with SuperSprings. So what these will do, these are like an add-a-leaf spring helper. So we're actually going to bring the back of the van up off the SuperSpring. That way it's not sitting on it full time. It will give it a little bit more ground clearance in the rear. But the main thing is to allow the suspension to work, have a little bit more bounce to it, just to smooth out the ride. And then when it gets real heavy and comes down in contact, the SuperSpring, they'll do their thing. So basically, you know, going over bumps on a bumpy road, it'd just be a pretty, it's like you're riding on rails, but it's just too stiff. So we're going to soften it back up a little bit while increasing our load carrying capacity. So besides the SuperSprings, we'll need some jack stands, a jack, some wheel chocks for the front, and I've got a set of these 6-inch gap clamps. What's nice about them is you can use an impact to tighten and loosen them instead of trying to do it by hand. I'm going to go ahead and grease this threads first before we get started. That's really all you need. These are just to compress these leaves while you're installing them. Alright, so the first step is I'm going to be jacking up the back of the van. We want to do it by the frame. So in my case, I have this hitch here, which will be nice and strong. So we're taking the weight off the suspension, and then I'll put a couple jack stands under. You can do any part of the frame that you can reach, but this is obviously the lowest part down here. So on each side, so we'll basically just be suspending the rear of the van until the tires are off. Again, make sure the front wheels are chalked, since there'll be nothing keeping it from rolling. So when I get to the tires are just off the ground. Alright, so my tires are just touching, but all the weight is off the suspension. So here is the spring for this side. It does say, have instructions like this says passenger side front. So this piece right here, we're going to flip it around, and it will sit up right in there's a little hole right here on the top of this shackle. So that'll fit right in there. We're just going to take a 3/4 inch socket, remove this bolt, pull this whole roller, just the bottom roller. Don't loosen these. And same thing on this side. We'll remove this bolt here. And we're going to be shooting for the middle holes. It says whether you have cast or stamped steel. The middle should be where you're going. I'll show you what it looks like here. So as you can see, we've got this on here, and it will be easy to get the front bolt in, but then where we have the problem is we'll have to compress this part back here to get it so we can get the bolts through. So I'll get it set, as you can see, just by rotating the front there. Put those bolts back in on the roller. Just a roller that goes in between. I'll show you. Alright, so depending on your van, you might have the single coil leaf, or like on ours, this heavy duty. It's got this extra one that we're gonna have to compress before we can even get that on there. So I'm going to take my clamp. And then tighten this up. Sort of snug this down. So just bent this, trying to tighten the back one here. I realized it's not going to be up to the job, so I kind of had to improvise and use a large U-bolt that I picked up at Rural King. Basically, I'm going to try to use that to pull the spring down back here. So I'm going to try to use the C-clamp to get this bottom leaf a little closer. Kind of do it in 2 steps. So there's a reason that none of the other YouTube videos show you this part, because it's just taking forever. And the thing was slipping, so I had to put some rubber, cut some little rubber shims to go in here just to keep it from sliding on the leaf spring. This is gonna take a few hours just to tighten this down, probably. Alright, so 50 clamps later, finally got it up there. What I found best is just if you use 2 clamps and just kind of work back and forth between the two. I needed some rubber to keep the clamps initially from sliding down. Once the spring gets straighter, you don't need the rubber as much anymore. So now I'm just going to tighten this up. These are nylon lock nuts, and we'll get everything just torqued so it's tight, front and back, and then we'll be able to go to the other side, which is the exact same thing. Okay, so we're over on the driver's side now. So we got the front one. Got the front one fastened, just like the other side. That's the easy one. Just take your one C-clamp, pull it down to the place, get it in that second spot. So this one, obviously that's much, much harder because it's starting out, the spring is shaped like in a U shape. And we're basically pulling it straight while compressing the factory suspension. And I just use a little clamp to try to take most of this space out of here because it creates a smaller gap to where we can get our large C-clamp. So this is an 8-inch C-clamp, but it has a like a hand actuated thing. But what you can do is take a wrench to help you turn it. And then we have the 6-inch one that I ordered, which I don't know if I'd really recommend those. Locally, I could get these big 8-inch ones a lot cheaper. But I'm using that in combination, and then I'm also using this U-bolt. And the reason the U-bolt is it was the longest, and that is to get it started when it's at its highest point. I also started out by, on this side, I just took a little piece of a wood block and stuck it on top of here. It made it a little harder to get that front one snug down, but it also started us, almost an inch lower than on the other side. You kind of learn as you go. So we're coming along. It works best to just alternate back and forth between the 2 clamps. So tighten this one a little bit, tighten this one a little bit, get my spacers in here, tighten this one a little bit. So I'm actually working with basically 3 clamps at a time because you're just holding the weight as you work with one clamp, stop, snug the other ones up. It also provides a means of safety because there's a lot of tension as we're pulling out of this spring that we're putting on it. So if that were to, come loose and snap up, not only could it cause injury or damage to the van, but it's all your time and effort that you're putting into it that is wasted at that point. So we're just going to keep going here, working back and forth. Working.
That's stuck.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
From the plant.
I know. Just breaking that wood. And now we're safe. This you want to tighten down until it closes the gap between the rollers. Just go like that. And then now I can just slowly release the tension, obviously, on all these clamps. That one's out of there. Alright, got the jack stands pulled out. Just looking at initial gappage. I guess I should have taken a tape measure and measured before, but I did have the Sumo springs in there, so they were sitting on them. Definitely a little bit higher in the back, which is good, since, like I said, added the Sumo springs to the front. But to get under here, here's the, we'll really be able to see. So you can see there is, on this side, and it's because the van is slightly on an angle here, we have a little less than an inch between the bottom of the Sumo spring. Then over on that side, it's about 1.5 inches. Maybe almost 2 inches. So that's good. That's what we want. So that should make the ride better, since we're not constantly sitting on the Sumo spring. And then as soon as we get any kind of jounce in the rear end, it's going to make contact with the Sumo spring and cushion it and firm it up. Alright, so going out for a test drive on a gravel road right now. And obviously still quite a bit of noise from the rear end on a gravel bumpy road. Alright, so initial impressions, it's alright. The ride feels about the same as it did, a little less harsh over bumps. The big gain, I think, with this upgrade over just the Sumo springs is the ground clearance. So if you need a little more ground clearance in the rear end, especially if you're towing, you're going to get at least, I'd say at least we got 1 inch, 1.5 inches, possibly even 2 inches. It's just hard to tell how much those Sumo springs were compressed. Alright, so full disclaimer, so something we need to talk about. So obviously we're changing the ride height, we're raising it significantly in the rear of the van. So anyone who knows anything about transits knows that the drive shafts on these are troublesome still through the brand new ones. So mine's a 2023. They have a TSB out that I've already had addressed, where they put like a vibration dampener on the drive shaft. So that did not completely eliminate the vibration issues we were having, but it made them completely tolerable. So raising the ride height has now made a new vibration at around 58 miles an hour, 55 to 58 miles an hour, it is kind of annoying. It's not the fault of the SuperSprings though. It's just the bad design of the transit, the drive shaft, the imbalance that Ford still has not completely figured out. So just understand, if this was a work van, especially if you had like a partition or something, you wouldn't even notice, you wouldn't care. The increased carrying capacity is worth the upgrade for sure. But if it's a luxury camper van, something to keep in mind, it could enhance a problem that you may already be having with some vibration in the driveline. So just something to keep in mind. There's lots of things, tires, wheels, but this van is known for the multi-piece drive shaft, and it induces vibrations. So just wanted to throw that out there, full disclaimer. If you're worried about that, you really don't want to change the ride height in the rear of your van. And that's across models. Lift kits on other vehicles experience similar problems when you change that angle. All right, so if you stuck around till the end, appreciate it. Again, good upgrade for increased carrying capacity in the rear. A little less harsh than just the SuperSprings, but the SuperSprings work really good by themselves as well, as long as you don't mind a little bit of noise coming off the road. I'll have links in the description to all the products you saw in the van. If the video was helpful, be sure to give it a like. Please subscribe, leave a comment, question below, and until next time, thanks for watching.